everyone, in this lesson we're going to talk about generating random numbers. Now there's several different ways to generate random numbers. I'm going to show you a few different ways and explain some of the differences. Anyways, let's talk about in Java, there's a wealth of functions that you can use in your programs. However, Java runs with a minimum amount of functions already available. So again, we're going to import some libraries so that way we can use some of those functions. We are going to use our import java.utils, and in here there is a function called random that helps us generate a random number. Now you could just put something like this, and I'm just going to put it in comments: import java.util.random, which is specific to the random function. So now that we have that in there and that we're going to be using a random function in our program, we have to talk about our range, or at least knowing what our range is going to be. So I'm going to do this here. And again, like I said, there's different ways to find random numbers. And this one I find makes a little bit more sense. So I'm going to do this one first. So I'm going to find my range and I'm going to just comment it out. So I'm going to have an int max, and maybe I make that 100, and an int minimum number and make that 1. Okay. Then we are going to need to call upon the random class, or the function, if you will, for random. And so it's similar to like where we have scanner, where we call upon it and create a variable to hold that random, or to hold that pieces of information we're going to be using. So I create a type random, or I call upon random as my type, and then I declare a variable. So this can be anything you want your random number to be. So I'm just going to say random and I'm going to create a new random, meaning I'm calling upon the new function for a random number. And again, this creates, and I'll go ahead and comment that out. So it creates instance of random class. Finally, we can generate our random number using a method called nextInt, and we're going to be passing our maximum number through this. So first off, I am now going to create a new variable type, so it's going to be an int, and I'm just going to call upon this when I want to print out my random number. So I'm just going to call it show me, and here I'm going to call upon my here I'm going to call upon my random number variable. So this one right here. So I'm going to do random num that, and then nextInt is where I'm passing through my max number. So I'm just going to call upon max. So that's where I get this max here. And I'm going to put a semicolon. And I'm going to print this out. Show me. All right, so when I run this, it generates a random number. Now, something that you should know is that from here, it's generating a random number from my max. So from 0 to 100. So that's where this comes into play. So it doesn't understand what the minimum is. And if I want to include 1 and not include 0, I need to add that in. So I'm going to do min plus. So that way I always will have a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 100. Now, let's say I want to change my min and max, my range. That's a little bit trickier. So if we think about um, creating different numbers, I can't just have, if my minimum was like 90, let's say, and I run this, you notice that it goes over my max number because it's taking my minimum 90 and adding it to my maximum. And so I might have a number between 0 and 100 here, and then I'm adding it to 90, which of course could be over 100, right? My max number could be 20 and then add to 90, which does not give me, it does not stay in that actual range. So this is where math might have to come into play. And you might think about, okay, so I need the difference between my max and my min. So maybe my min, let's see what that runs. So it's going between 100 and 90, you'll notice, and or 100 minus 90, which would give me is 10. And now I want to add that to my min. And now all those numbers should be between 90 and 100. So you can notice there's that way of creating our random number and generating that. Now there's a different way that we can do this, and we can talk about using random in a different way. So there's definitely this. And then here is a different way, and I'm going to just do a system print line and show you a different way to do this. So print action. And I just want to show you how this might look as well. So for this one, we are going to still use math random, but in a slightly different way. We're going to create a double this way. So when we use random, math random, it actually generates a number between 0.0 and 0.99999. And so we're going to be using a double this way. So I'm going to create a double, and I'm going to call it my number, or I'm going to put my random. My random number. And this is going to use, again, math at random, lowercase r, open and closing parenthesis. And what this is going to do is this math random generates, again, a number between 0.000 and 0.999. So this is where I have to think about what's my max number going to be. And so let's say I make it between 0 and 5. And I'm going to multiply by 5. So I'm going to make a note here and tell you that math random generates a random number between 0.00 and 0.99999. There. So if I want to print this out, and I'm just going to copy because I'm a little bit lazy, and then I'm going to put option 2. So you can see what that will generate. And that's going to be my random number, right? Run that. All right, so you notice like my different option of this one gives me a number between 0 and 5, but notice that it's a very big, it's a bigger number. It's a double. It's a longer decimal point. And so here we may have to do some rounding. So in order to do that, I am going to round that, and I'm going to need to use a little bit different utils. I'm going to need to import Java. And I think it's language. I'm going to make sure that that is the correct. Yep. So I'm importing a different utility, or a different library, and I'm going to do some rounding. So here I might round. Instead of, I'm going to round my number. Oops, I'm going to actually cut that. And I'm going to round this. So I might say a double and new num. And I'm going to math that round my new random number. So my random and then call upon it here, new num. All right, let's run that. So notice it rounds my number here. So if I want to, for example, if I want to print out, let's see, option 2, let's do with decimals, just so you can see. And this is my random number. All right, so again, my top part here is generating still a number between 90 and 100. And then my different option, which I can't spell different, sorry about that. My different option is where I have decimals and it rounds. And so there's, like I said, there's 2 different ways. You do need this language one, this library, if you want to use math. No. Or math round. You'll need this. You'll need this library. And so, as I said, this first option, again, does your max and min range. You have to think a little bit ahead of time, like what numbers you're passing through, which ones you're including. And then this different option does similar the same things, but gives you using doubles. So we haven't used doubles a whole lot, but it does give you a different option as far as generating a random number and then rounding it. So both are effective and allow you to generate random numbers. So that way, maybe you could think about like if you were rolling a dice and generating a random number that way. If you were doing like, hey, rock, paper, scissors, 1, 2, 3, you could generate a random outcome for each player. And so generating random numbers is an important concept in programming. And so let me just do this so you guys can see. If I do this last one, 1 through 100 as well. So you notice they both go pretty different random. All right, and that's random numbers.